Hey everybody, so it's been a while since I made a GPUI video, so I thought I'd make another one. And what we're going to do today is we're going to basically build a very simple to-do app. We're basically going to take the input example that they have and shuffle things around a little bit, and then hopefully just create a very simple, dumb to-do app. And it's not going to really be so much of a tutorial, it's more of me just going to be like blundering through it basically. So let's get into it. Alright, so I just have a very basic empty project here. Cool. And then probably the first thing to do is to get the hello world working, and I think they have it getting started. Yep. Alright. And then I know we're also going to need one more thing right here. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and let Cargo download those dependencies. And then, yeah, this is the basic hello world. Okay, and so here we have the very basic hello world little app spun up. Okay, so that works. And then I think what we should do is in their examples, they have that input over here. So I'm just gonna basically copy paste this all across and build this guy. Cool, and we can see that we have the input over here. And very basic, but we can move throughout the characters, delete, and type. And so this is kind of like a lot of lines, a lot of lines of code. Yeah, and it's just a little bit unfortunate, but that is the state of GPUI right now. But what I'm gonna do is I'm basically just gonna grab all of this for the most part and put it into its own file. And just treat it as like a component, and I won't think about it much after then. So yeah, hundreds of lines of code, all the paint stuff. I'm also going to use GPUI. Same with this. So this is just keeping it a bit cleaner. And then there's a couple things we need to do. We need to go and make this public. And I believe we have to make a few of these public too. Okay, and then the reset method needs to be public as well. And I believe that's pretty much it. Okay, so we still have a working to-do or a cube text input example. One thing I'm going to change though is I'm going to name this to workspace. Workspace, and then we're going to get rid of some things. We don't need those recent keystrokes, so I'm going to get rid of that. And this, I'm going to call this submit to do, and we don't need this, and we don't need this. Submit to do. And then we're going to call this submit. I'm just going to get rid of X and make it padding all the way around. And then add some positioning here. Justify center. else are we missing? Yeah, so we don't need to observe the keystrokes. We don't need the layout change. So we don't need this. And we don't need this view. Text input focus. And then I don't think we need the keyboard layout. Okay, let's run this again. Okay, so yeah, we have the button and the form. Let's just see if we can bring those together. We can put this guy here. So it should be, yeah, that's what we want. So now we have them next to each other. And then I think the other thing we want is for this guy to be on the bottom. So over here, okay, so now we just need this little area to take up all the space. So maybe we could do, okay, so we've got the basic structure now. Just reshuffled everything around, and yeah, so this is where our list is going to go, and we'll be able to type and submit. And we lose focus. Why are we losing focus? I could type, but as soon as I click and drag, we lose the focus. So I think we just don't want this. Do we have track focus? I think we have track focus and input. We do, okay. So I'm just gonna get rid of that. Okay, so we keep the focus now, no matter what we do. Okay, cool. So one more thing I'm gonna do here is just justify center and center this. Okay, so the to-do's in the middle, but anyway, not that important, but okay. So in a previous video, we made a list component, and we're basically going to do that same thing. Yeah, so I guess we can just put something like this over here. And there's a new, we pass it in with 0. List alignment bottom. What else does this take? Pixels. And what else do we take? The render item. Yeah, so right, and this takes a few things. I can never remember what they are, so I just do this. So this looks like the index. This is the window, and and this is the app. Okay, so now I think what we can do is, I think we don't need any of these, but we can just do, I think we can probably do into any element is what we want. Yeah. I'm just gonna underscore these guys really quick. Right. Okay, so we have a basic list state. What are we complaining about? We don't read it. That's right. We don't read it yet. Yeah, so it's probably gonna be something like make it full width and make it full height. Okay, so we have the list in there. And so we can actually do something like this, because it just cleans things up a little bit. And then we can do something like call this controls. Okay, so that just cleans it up a little bit. So here's the list, the text input and the controls. And then, yeah, so here we need to do right. And so what we're doing here basically is we're just resetting the text input, and this notifies this view that needs to update, actually reset. So cool. Let me just double check that everything's running. Okay. And so, right. I think what we can do next is the global state. Yeah, so it's not that much. So I'll just put it at the bottom maybe. And so what we're gonna have a count. So this is how many items we have, and then the items themselves is a vector of to do item. And so let's create that. Okay, and then we're gonna have some sort of like state model. And this is gonna take an entity of our state. And then the cool thing is we can do this impl global. Okay, and then one other thing we're going to want to do is a list change event. And then we can do an event emitter for our list changed event for state. Okay, yeah, so this is nice because basically we're going to add stuff to our global state, which is going to have these items. And when we do that, we just want to be able to basically like broadcast that event, and anywhere else in the app can pick that up if it subscribes. And so this can just be like a nice way to just like rip that global state out and just, you know, but anything still needs updates, they can get it. And that's all we need to do is that implementation. And so there's nothing to actually fill out. which is super nice. Yeah, so we can just get this. Or actually, what am I doing? State entity can be this. With state, with count being set to 0. Like this. Okay, so this state entity is that. Okay, so now the cool thing is we can grab this and we can put it here. Cool. So one thing we're going to do really quick is we're also going to split this apart. And yeah, what I basically want to do is I want to subscribe to the state entity here. I know we're going to detach this. And I think yeah, 4 arguments. So this is self. This is the entity. This is the event. And this is the context. Okay. I'm just gonna call this. Sorry. Oh, okay. I think we need to. Okay, so now we can clone the items, and we could say list state. And I believe it's the same stuff we had before. And then also this. We are going to use the index, but we're going to do and then we're also going to do this. Okay. Right. So yeah, so what we do need to do is this guy can also derive this and into element, which means we need a render once. Yeah, okay, so that that render function signature looks like this. So I always just find it somewhere. Yeah, I mean, you can click around into it, and yeah, here it is. So, right. So what we're gonna do here, it's just basically the to-do item. So we could do something like justify between, and we could do self dot. And then we can also do something like that. Okay, so we have render once, and then what is it saying that now? Okay, so it doesn't like this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do this. And actually this is probably better because we can then split it up in the app in different ways, and it would probably be better. So we want to do something like state model. And then we can put this here. We don't use this. And I think we can put move over here. Okay, and we're all clean. So let's format this. Okay, so a lot happened there, and I've just been mumbling myself. Yeah, so let me just try to basically, so what we're doing is we're creating this workspace entity, basically. And what we're doing is, while we're creating that, we have access to this context. And so we're basically saying, hey, when we create this, go grab a reference to this inner state model and subscribe to it. And then basically, like, as that updates, we want to read those items and put them into our list state. And so I'm not quite sure of the internals of list state, but I just know that, yeah, it's kind of this like own thing. So we basically just have like our global state, and this list state basically subscribes to it via this mechanism right here. And so, yeah, we initialize it with this, but very quickly does it subscribe and get all this info. And so, like, if you put something in here, it's pretty much going to be nulled out right away for the most part. Yeah, so anyway. And the other nice thing that we've done here is, because we have this to-do item, it's gonna be, we can basically just like from that item, we can delete, because we want to have a way to delete these as well. So anyway, it'll make more sense as we're going through it. One other thing we want to do is, yeah, so we also want to notify, so if this happens and we change this view, we also want to notify our view itself. So I think we could just do, yeah, cx notify as well. Okay, so here we want to add, this is going to be to the global state. And so I think what we can do is, because we have the context, we can do an update global. State model. Right, so update takes this, and then we can just pass that in. And how many arguments do we expect? Okay, so this is the state model, and I believe this should probably be a context. Yep. the state, and this is context. Yep, cool. So I think what we do is state dot items dot push. Okay, so this is basically the text, and we can pass that through, and then we can push on this, and we should not be doing this like count manually, but it's fine. Okay, so I think that should pretty much work. Add to do. Cool. So we can officially add to-dos to the list. So that's awesome. Yeah, so that's pretty exciting. Workspace, a bit to do, and then I believe we just want to wait to delete them really quick. Yeah, so this guy on mouse up, mouse button left. Okay, so let's just see what this is. So this is the event, the mouse event. This is the window. This is probably the context of the app, right? Just go ahead and update the state. Yeah, so I think so we're just gonna want to find that ID. So we could do state.items, and we can iterate through them, and we can find out where that one ID matches. We can unwrap this. So we should have an index, and then we can just remove. What else? ignored. Let's also do a little bit of padding on this. We do a border top. RGB. Alright, I feel like we're missing something, but oh. Okay. Right, so this changed. Cool. So there we are. We can add to-dos and we can take them away. Okay. So yeah, it's not like mega pretty looking, but with a bunch of tweaks and stuff, you can eventually get to this. And this is what we can eventually get to with some styling and stuff. And so this is just like a simple theme, but we have icons and various things, and so it could be much prettier. But I'll have a Git repo available for this video, and that repo's actually been up for a while already in the description. So yeah, hopefully this was useful, and see you guys in the next one. Bye.